enough. All we've got to do is just call me Ken, and as I say to my students at school, that's perfectly fine. So what I want to do, probably the first thing to do, is just to kind of introduce myself and some of my background, just from a relevancy standpoint, because I don't know where you guys are in your journey, and it'll help me to kind of explain to you where I've been, and then we can kind of see if there's a synergy. As Anjanetta mentioned, I've not been an academic my whole career. It's a rather recent affliction for probably the last 8 years or so now. Prior to that, I was like you guys. I was out in the real world. I was out raising money for my business. I was hiring and firing. I was fending off competition, developing a product, trying to grow the business. I had investors and everything else. And so I've kind of walked the walk, and in addition to talking the talk with you tonight. And what I want to do is just briefly explain to you what I did. After graduating college, I found myself in the finance business. I worked for a bank in the management training side of things, and got to see commercial banking from the inside out. I got to see what it's great at and what it's not so great at. Then I started working in the alternative finance industry. Worked in the equipment leasing industry for about a decade. And then spent about 22 or 3 years building my own show. And my company was in something called invoice factoring. I'll spare you all the big detail, but the point was that we provided financing to small and mid-sized growing businesses, companies like yours potentially, and worked with entrepreneurial firms, literally financed over 1,000 of them over those years. Grew the business to decent size. We had a national presence. Had 50 million in revenues. We're doing perfectly fine by most people's definitions. But, I kind of found myself getting a little itchy, and I found myself teaching here part-time at that point in my career. And it was in the evenings, and it was one night a week. And we call that an adjunct professor. And I said, boy, I really enjoy this, even more so than my own company. And I kind of looked at myself. I'm in my 50s at that point, just turned the clock and the 50s. And many of you will know, you hit midlife and you try and figure out, well, what's important now, and I'm financially comfortable. What do I want to do the rest of my career? And I had kind of grown bored with my business. I know that sounds kind of hard to believe, but after 20 plus years, I just found that this was spinning my propeller more. So when a full-time opening arose, I decided to sell out of my business, and I sold back to my partners. And slid over here at SU, and I've been here for 8 years now, and I'm loving every bit of it. And I get to work with people like yourself, people that are kind of dialed in, that are really trying to figure out what the next stage of their career is. I work with undergrads, I work with grads, and I'm having a ball. I really am. Excuse the light that just went out behind me. I'm going to put that back on. I have a motion sensor here in my office, and rather stupidly, it's behind a file cabinet. So in order to get it to reset, I can't just go like this. I've got to go and back up about 6 or 8 feet and go wave my arm there. So I'll be right back. Kind of magic, and unfortunately, it won't be the only time we have to do that tonight. So if you would, give me a sense, some of you, of where you stand with regard to your businesses. And are you launched? Are you in the seed stage? Are you in the pre-seed stage? Give me a sense, for those of you that are pursuing entrepreneurship, where you are in the journey. Anybody, or maybe Anjanetta, do you know the folks well enough to call on them to tell their story?
Sure.
I know not everyone is to that
They
stage.
won't like it, but they can go ahead. So now they're going to get started now that they know I'll call on them. Usually Joel is the first to speak, but now okay, come on, Franklin. Yay.
I'm at the beginning of starting a skincare business, the very, very beginning, just product development. We have got one product and we've sold it here and there to a couple of people that we know, and now we're just trying to figure out where to go from there. I mean, we just literally just got the ingredients down, and that's it, and our supplier.
Have you thought through your market yet, Franklin, to kind of figure out, are you going to sell to individuals directly, or will you sell through intermediaries like stores? Have you thought any of that yet?
I would like to do a little bit of both. Obviously I haven't put any of my stuff in a store yet. So everything has just been through word of mouth and through like personal sales and stuff, you know?
Got it. If I could, I'm just going to stay with you for a moment. We'll kind of go around the horn with each person in this fashion. One of the things you need to plan on from a financing standpoint is to recognize that your cash flow is going to be dramatically different depending on which type of customer you're selling to. If you're selling to an end user, either directly through the internet or perhaps at a trade show or a fair or something like that, you're going to get paid right there immediately at the register. That's great for your cash flow. But if you're going to sell through an intermediary, like a drugstore or a convenience store, they're not going to pay you immediately. And you're going to need to figure out, how am I going to handle the cash impact of putting my product together, sending it off to them, not knowing when it's going to sell or when I'm going to get paid on it. So you need to kind of plan accordingly. And those are one of the
Yes, sir.
things. That's one of the things that just sort of jumped at me immediately as you said what you said.
Yes, sir.
Who'd like to tell me next what they're doing?
This is Joel. Right now, I'm in the process of becoming well, we're trying to live full time in our RV and travel across the country, and we're trying to do something like a YouTube or some type of a channel to talk about our experiences and recommend products and activities on the road and stuff like that. And I'm just trying to figure out now how to monetize that.
Yeah, so you're going to be a digital nomad. And so,
Yeah, somewhat.
all right, so you're thinking that YouTube is going to be your primary vehicle or distribution channel, if you want to call it that?
Right now, yeah, I haven't really. I mean, I have an infant website that I'm trying to create, and then I was going to use YouTube and other social media avenues to try to focus to that website, but YouTube, yeah, was going to be one of my primary ways to advertise and create a product.
And you're probably aware that you can generate revenue directly from YouTube based on the number of viewers, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm aware of that.
So you're going to make maybe a YouTube channel? Do you think you can get to that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So your idea is to kind of share your exploration as you travel around the country. Is that the concept?
Yeah, share their exploration, try to talk about different deals people can have, or how people can use their military benefits in their travels, and stuff like that.
I'm afraid that almost your entire explanation got garbled, unfortunately. I didn't hear it. Can we try it one more time?
Okay. Yeah, basically give people advice on how they could try to do this on their own, make money on the road, how they can use certain products to make their lives better, and how they can use their military benefits to, on the road to benefit them during this journey.
So it really kind of comes down to, what can you charge for, right? What's going to be your value proposition? Because as you said, you got to figure out how to monetize this beyond just a YouTube channel. Have you thought about a podcast, perhaps?
Not, not at the moment. No, I mean, that could be something we could do along with the YouTube channel, but I don't know. I've looked into, affiliate marketing, which seems somewhat possible, but I don't know if that's as profitable as some people say it is on the internet. So I was just going to try to start with the YouTube and then expand from there.
You could also put together some clothing, a clothing line or swag of some sort that kind of talks about this journey you're taking, and people can kind of buy into that as well. Especially if you can build a bit of a following through these other vehicles, you'll be able to kind of sell your products directly to folks that want to participate in it, at least remotely. Kind of fun. How long have you been on the road so far, Joel?
Well, actually, we're just trying to, well, as you see here, we're waiting on our RV to get fixed in Nashville because it was stolen a year ago, and we just got it back 6 months ago, and we're trying to get it repaired so we can actually move back into it. So right now we're just waiting to start in about, hopefully at the beginning of October, we're going to start our journey, start in Memphis and then go down south to Texas and then over to the West Coast.
There's a guy from here in Syracuse who rode his bicycle over the course of a year to all 50 US capitals. And it got picked up by Fox News primarily, but others as well. And he got a national following along the way with tens of thousands of followers. And he was monetizing it by selling garments, just like I was talking about, that kind of publicized his trip and publicized the uniqueness of it. And you might want to kind of look at some of the same things as well. He just finished the trip about 2 months ago. His name is Bob Barnes, if you want to look that up. Bob Barnes. Thanks, Joel.
Did you say Barnes, like a barn?
Yeah, Barnes. Bob Barnes.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate the advice.
Marie, did I see your hand go up before?
I'm sorry,
Hello?
Rebecca, did you say Terry?
Yes, I thought I saw Terry put a
Yes, yes, I have my hand up. Thank you so much. So I have actually launched my company, but I felt like I needed to get some assistance in better refining the value proposition. The company is a startup tech company. We provide IT services, data analytics, and budget services, primarily to the Department of Defense. So my funding questions obviously align with how do you have enough initial funding to cover your requirements until the government pays for that contract.
Sure. So let's have that kind of discussion, because I'm guessing, by the way, is anybody further down the evolutionary scale, or is everybody kind of in that same place or earlier? Okay, so let's kind of have that conversation about how to get the ship to sail initially. You know, a couple of the big issues that I can share with you from a personal experience standpoint is that you need to be strategic about whatever you decide. And let me be more specific. In my financing business, helping entrepreneurs, I was amazed over the years at just how ramshackle their funding was, to put it simply. They, borrowed from here, they got money from there, they hustled money from over here, and it was just like a collection of band-aids by the time they showed up to my place looking for some kind of an institutional cash infusion. And a lot of times they did so in a helter-skelter fashion where they just, whatever they needed at that time is what they did. And I'd like to get you guys to first think about a strategic decision. There's a big fork in the road here, which is, do you raise debt or do you raise equity? And let me be precise about that. When I say debt, by definition, I'm talking about money that you're going to raise that you need to repay with interest at a time certain, and maybe you have to provide collateral for as well. When I say equity, what I'm talking about is an investor who's going to come in and give you cash in exchange for a piece of your business. And we call those angel investors. If you've all watched at some point or another, everybody has seen Shark Tank on TV. Now, Shark Tank makes for great television because of the name sharks, and it makes you think that it's a brutal deal. But in fact, those people that are playing the role of sharks are by definition called angel investors. I need to fix my light again real quick. And as you know, having watched that show, their interest is to take a piece of your business in exchange for cash that you need now. Well, neither a bank nor an angel investor is going to have great interest in your business until you've got something tangible. So the big question becomes, well, what do I need to make something tangible? How much cash do I need to do that? We can label ourselves pre-seed or R&D or whatever stage we want, but the bottom line is that we have to figure out a way to kind of kickstart things. And we normally will look in our own pocket for the initial funding, And I might add that credit cards are a great way to do it. I will also share with you that most businesses, and of course there are exceptions always, but most small businesses get started for numbers less than $5,000, typically way less than 5,000. So this isn't something where you have to go around and raise millions of dollars like I did. Instead, you've got to try and figure out a way to get the ball rolling. And you're also going to turn to friends and family. And I want you to hear this, guys. Please promise me that when you speak to friends and family, when you accept their money, that you do yourself a favor, but also your friend or family member a big favor, and document what you're doing. Let's be clear about the understanding what we're doing here. Is this a loan or is this an investment in my business? If it's a loan, what's the interest rate and how am I repaying the money? If it's an investment, what's the piece of the business that I'm providing you as a partner? I'll give you a real world war story. And I love to tell people this story. A friend of mine was in the early stages of his business. He had launched, but he needed $50,000 to really kind of get things going. And he raised $50,000 from his uncle. We'll call him Uncle Lou. Well, he took Uncle Lou's 50 grand, he deployed it in his business, and his business flourished just like he knew it would. The business did wonderfully. And after just 2 years, he was able to repay Uncle Lou. And he went to the Thanksgiving Day table that year. Everybody are gathered around the table. And he stands up to kind of make an announcement. He talks about the fact that Uncle Lou was there for him once upon a time when he needed it most, and the power of family is just always there. And he saw fit to help me out. And I must tell you, it's changed my life. I'm a new man because of it. I have a bright future now. I've deployed the money in my company. I couldn't be happier and prouder to have been helped by Uncle Lou. And I want you, Uncle Lou, to know what a difference you've made. And in fact, Uncle Lou, as he slides an envelope across the table, I have your $50,000 here to pay you back, along with another $15,000 for interest. And I want to thank you so much for your investment in my business. And I want to, repay you right here and now in front of everyone. Well, everybody's applauding. A few people are wiping tears off their eyes and stuff. It's a beautiful moment, right? Except for Uncle Lou, who looks at the envelope, looks back at my friend, and with a blank face says to my friend, well, what is this for? I thought I was your partner. Okay. Think about that now. All right. How do you, after that big speech, say, oh, no, Uncle Lou, I'm just paying you back. That was a loan. Ladies and gentlemen, to this day, my friend has a 50-50 partner, and his name is Uncle Lou. Okay. My friend was a fool. My friend took Uncle Lou's money and didn't clarify with Uncle Lou what the deal was. All of us are going to turn to friends and family at some early juncture in our business's progression. Promise me that you won't do what my friend did. Promise me that you'll think through what has to happen and what the nature of the arrangement is so that you won't make that same mistake. So let's go back to funding. You're going to need to figure out how to shake some money out of your personal tree. But please understand, you don't need to empty your entire wallet, your entire bank account. But everyone, including friends and family, is going to want to know that you've got some cash in the game. We call that skin in the game. So everybody needs to pony up some capital. You need to pony it up till it hurts a little bit, to be frank. But at that point, you can then kind of pass the hat amongst family and friends. Be clear that this is either debt or this is equity. And there are pros and cons to both, especially at this early stage. Many of you will reflexively say, boy, I only want to borrow debt money because I don't want somebody to have a piece of my business. I want to be able to just have debt. Okay. The problem, however, with debt is that it's got to be repaid starting immediately. And your business is not in position to repay money. You're not even generating revenues, or if you are, you're generating insufficient revenues. You're not making a profit yet, and you're already servicing debt. That can be pretty debilitating to your company. So bear in mind that is indeed a downside to debt. And at this early stage in your business, you might very well need to offer an extremely high interest rate something in the 12 to 15% range just for a couple of years. So debt is not a complete panacea, but it does protect your ownership. On the other hand, if you go the equity route, you're going to give up a piece of your ownership to your investor. That's the downside. However, they might be someone who can provide you an awful lot of guidance and help and support and counsel. They might have a Rolodex to open up on your behalf. They might have been there, done that. So my message here is that if you go the equity route, try and work with somebody who can provide you more than just green cash, but rather you can work with someone who can provide you counsel and is going to be a partner in a literal sense with you, where they can dig in with you to help ensure your eventual success. The good part about equity money is it need not be repaid. All right, the money goes into your business, you deploy it as you see fit, and your business starts to take off and you do great. You don't have to repay it until such time that you choose to maybe sell the business, or that you start to strip out profits from the business and share it with your investor partner. So there's no right or wrong here, whether you go debt or whether you go equity. The wrong is if you do it willy-nilly without thinking it through, or if you do as my friend did, which is just take the money and worry about it later. However tempting that might be, don't do it like that. Now, most small businesses will start out with equity funding, by finding an equity partner. Most small businesses will not start out with a debt instrument, primarily because the debt service can be a problem. On the other hand, it is a choice, and it's one that I just counsel you to make with eyes open, whichever right way you go. So that way, someday, when you need institutional capital, you've thought things through. I will also tell you that having an equity investor helps your balance sheet and makes you look better when you do eventually try and go to the bank for funding. And that is helpful to you in the long run. All right. So if you go to the bank for funding and you have to show them a whole bunch of debt that's already on your balance sheet, that makes the conversation that much tougher. If, however, you go to the bank and you don't show any debt on your balance sheet and you show a fellow investor who's ponied up some cash into your company, that looks a whole lot better. Now let's talk quickly about, it doesn't need to be quickly, but now let's turn the page and talk a little bit about the different alternative places for you to go raise money. Everybody always comes thinking that there's some honey hole, there's some big money pot with a big rainbow, and the rainbow ends there, and this is all these riches waiting for you to start. I wish it were true. The reality, however, is that we all have to kind of push and scratch and kick and claw and find our way through these early days. And at some point, you're going to likely go to the bank for funding. Let's understand what's going to happen at that conversation. Let's understand that the admittance ticket for that conversation is a business plan, as well as financial results. A bank isn't going to lend you money because you have a cool idea. That's not what they're in the business to do. A bank is very risk averse. A bank doesn't want to take on big risk, where an investor might because they see the opportunity for long-term profits. A bank isn't motivated that way. A bank doesn't make enough in the way of interest to take that kind of risk. Think about what happens if a bank has a loss. You know how, if a bank loses a $100,000 loan, can you imagine how many more loans it has to make at 6% interest in order to make up that loss and that principal? It's brutal. So that's not their game. However, what helps us dramatically is an organization called the Small Business Administration, the SBA. This is a governmental run program. It's a cabinet level position within the US government. And their role is to help us as emerging entrepreneurs. And I want to talk a little bit about all the different ways that they do that. So first off, one of their biggest things that they do is that they provide a guarantee program to incent banks to work with us. So if Ken the entrepreneur walks into the bank, and I'm an early stage entrepreneur without a whole lot of history, they're still going to want to see my business plan, but they're also going to realize that if they can structure a deal with the SBA, the bank is going to be guaranteed by the SBA. Said simply, the bank will make a loan with me and the SBA will guarantee my performance. I hear that. The bank will literally receive an 80% guarantee from the SBA. The bank has just traded Ken the entrepreneur's credit for that of Uncle Sam. That's a nice day at the bank. Okay, so the bank will look at the merits of my business. If they like it, they'll then work with the SBA to get the SBA to guarantee my loan. And once the SBA guarantees my loan, the bank is happy as a clam. They lend me the money. Now, please understand that the SBA isn't crazy, nor are the banks. They're going to insist that there still be a decent credit here. Number one, they're going to look at your personal credit. No matter how much you think you and the business are separate, in a very real sense, for small businesses, that business is you and you are that business. So they're going to look at your credit. So please, I urge all of you to take care of your personal credit as best you can. The next thing is to think about is that the bank is going to get this guarantee from the SBA, but it's not a free program. Normally, the SBA will charge a fee, typically 1 to 2% of the loan for this guarantee. And the bank will normally pass that on to us as the borrower. And I say normally because you are the exception. You guys as veterans, as retired military people, oftentimes can get that guarantee removed in its entirety, or at least reduced. Remember, to raise that issue, if indeed you ever get involved with an SBA guaranteed loan from the bank, because of your service, for which we're all grateful, you get that discount or the waive of the fee. And I say or because it varies from administration to administration whether it's waived fully or not. But at the very least, it's a pretty good benefit. I see a question from Ben about the credit check being extended to partners. The answer is yes. If there is a partner who has an interest in your business of more than about 10%, they're going to look at that. The banks will require, and we have to expect this, ladies and gentlemen, because there are small businesses, the banks are going to require our personal guarantee. And you have to know that that's going to be part of the game. If that's a non-starter for you, then don't accept debt money. Go talk to an equity investor. But if you're looking for debt money, know that the personal guarantee is going to be part of the conversation. And basically anyone who is a beneficial owner of the company for an amount of 10% or more, the bank is going to consider to be a financial principal, and they will want to both see their personal credit as well as obtain their personal guarantee. So the last part I want to talk to you about with bank lending is the word called collateral. It is normal for the bank, as a matter of practice. This isn't because bankers are mean people. It's just the way the landscape is. The bankers are under the impression that when you come in for a loan that you are knowledgeable about collateral and know that they are going to want what's called a blanket collateral lien. Let me explain what that means. I'm going to read out to you off the top of my head because I've seen it so many hundreds of times over the years. Language that's going to be in the loan agreement. And here it goes. Borrower, that's you guys. Borrower hereby pledges to secured party, that's the bank, a first collateral lien position in all of borrower's present and hereafter acquired assets. Let me say that again. Borrower hereby pledges to secured party a first collateral lien interest in all of borrower's present and hereafter acquired assets. Anybody's knees buckle? They should have. Okay. 95% of the entrepreneurs I know who go in for a bank loan have no idea that that language is there, but somewhere on page 13 in little 8-point font, it's there, trust me. And what that means is that for the duration of the loan, any asset that the company has is pledged as collateral to support that loan. Think about over time what happens. As your business grows, so too do the value of your corporate assets. That's great for the bank. Over time, as you repay the loan, the amount owed to the bank goes down. That's also great for the bank. And you have this inversion where The assets are going up and the loan is going down. That's a beautiful deal for the bank. I want you guys to be more knowledgeable than that. I want you guys to not only know that that's happening, but also that you can negotiate some of it. Most people don't know this. Most people think that, oh, the SBA would never allow that. The SBA is the easiest party in this whole program. The SBA will look at the overall decision and say, yeah, we're good with that. So here, let's talk a little bit about different kinds of assets. Let me ask you guys, let's get engaged here today in class. What kind of assets does a typical company have? Let's think about collateral categories. What comes to mind?
Equipment.
Equipment, I love it. Keep going.
Building,
Sure, real estate.
Fleet.
A fleet, if you've got vehicles, sure, keep going.
Inventory.
Inventory, I love it. What else? How about cash?
Carol,
So let's go through what those categories are. Cash, inventory. If you're in the B2B business, you have to invoice people, right? Those are called accounts receivable. That's an asset of the company. So accounts receivable are assets. Furniture, fixtures, real estate, general intangibles, if maybe you have a patent or a trademark. To some greater or lesser degree, all of you guys, depending on what you do for a living, will have one or more of those categories as collateral. Do know that you're pledging them to the bank. It's possible, however, that if you have a lot of collateral, that maybe you don't give the bank a first interest in all of those assets. Maybe one or more of those asset classes you leave out of the pledge. How do you do that? You talk to the lender at the front end. You don't ask after the loan. After the loan, you have zero chance of getting them to release. But prior to the loan, they want to make money. They want to make you happy. So prior to that loan, in your negotiation with the bank, you explain that I don't want to do a full blanket lien here. I'd like to negotiate a little bit. Is there something here that we can release from that collateral package? And the banker will reflexively say, oh, no, the SBA would never allow that. And I want you to say, oh, I'd like to ask them anyway. I think they likely will. And you'll find that many times they will. So rather than getting yourself locked up and having all of your assets tied together, with the bank, let's not do that. Now, why is that important? Well, I made my living working with people to whom the bank said no after they first had their first loan. So you get your first loan, you got $50,000 from the bank. You're happy as a clam. It's your wealthiest day of your life. You plow that money into your business. And just like you promised, your business flourishes. And as you guys have already learned, hopefully, as your business grows, its need for cash and capital will continue to raise. It will continue to rise. And 6 months later, you go back to the bank and you say, hey, thank you for that 50 grand. That worked out really well. Look at how much my business has grown. But Mr. Banker, I need another 100 now. And the banker is going to start to get a little itchy. All right. And they're going to start to say, well, I got to look at things, and it's not even been a year yet. And I need to see your audited financials and your tax return and blah, blah, blah. And then I got to go to credit committee and all sorts of other stuff. And by the end of 3 or 4 months, you finally get a no. Well, then what are you going to do at that point if the bank has first dibs on all of your assets as collateral? Are you going to be able to incent someone like me to help you out? You can't. You have no cards to play. You played them all when you got that first $50,000 loan. So I ask you a rhetorical question. Who's in charge of growing your business at this point? It's not you, it's the banker. Don't make that mistake. So that would be early stage advice I would tell you for debt if you go to a bank. If you go to an individual and borrow money with the understanding that it's debt and you're going to pay it back, please go to a drugstore, a convenience store, a stationery store, maybe pull it down off the internet. Execute a promissory note and a security agreement that's clear and concise as to what's happening here, what the rights are of the different parties, and ensure that your friend or family member is protected. And for that matter, that you're protected from any odd event that they might impose upon you. I've seen situations where family members will give money to someone, and then something happens in their world, and they say, "Hey, I need it back." That doesn't work for me because I've already employed it in my business. So let's be clear about the rights and responsibilities of each party by executing a promissory note and a security agreement. Now that's all the debt side of things. Let's talk about the equity side. You've all seen Shark Tank at one time or another. It's great TV. It's also really, really not realistic. The reality is that, yes, there is discussion about how much money for how much ownership. On Shark Tank, that's all there is. In the real world, there's about 10 questions that have to get answered prior to that conversation. For example, you need to have a discussion about the future financial projections of the business. You need to have a discussion about how you're going to be paid. I'll never forget it when I raised money from investors and the bank. Their first or second question was, "Ken, how are you going to pay yourself?" Because the last thing we want as investors is to give you guys a whole bunch of money and for you to wake up tomorrow morning and decide you're a six-figure kind of guy. We want to see you make money, but not our money. All right. And we want our money to fuel the business, but we're not here to fill your pocket. So let's have that conversation. Let's decide how I'm going to get paid and how will they make money and how we'll share the profits in the business. And in the process, try and figure out how we're going to grow the business and what our responsibilities will each be. If you've got partners, what's your responsibility? What's your partner's responsibility? Where is your market? Where is your supply chain? How are you getting your products made? Where are you selling them? What's your distribution channels? All of those questions lead towards an eventual conversation about how much money for how much ownership. What those questions are really doing is they're providing a valuation base for your business. You're in the process now of you and your investor or your prospect are starting to figure out how much is this business worth. If it's $1 million business and I'm going to raise $100,000 from you, that's equal to 10% of the business's value. That's how much equity I should give up or how much ownership I should give up. So the question becomes, what's the value of this business? And that is a whole nother conversation, one that we can't really tap into in one conversation at night, because there's a lot of different ways to try and figure this value out. Part of the valuation is how much is the business going to make in the future? How realistic is that? How probable are those profits? Remember that an equity investor isn't buying in on what you've already done. An equity investor is buying in based on what you're going to do. And it's that promise that floats their boat, gets them excited about becoming your partner. Banks and lending work opposite. Banks and lending want to know what you've already done, as well as what you might do in the future. But the banks are all about, give me collateral in case you mess up. I'm not going to charge you any ownership, and I'm not going to charge you a high interest rate, but I want to know that I've got collateral in case you mess up. An equity investor, quite opposite. Anyone who comes to you and says, "Hey, Ken, all of you, you should absolutely start your business with debt, or you should absolutely start your business with equity," is simply betraying their incompetence. It varies. It depends on you and your need and what you're most comfortable with. Excuse me a minute while I turn my light back on. Let's open the floor to some questions. I've been babbling way too long. Questions at all?
Yeah, I got a question. I don't know. I heard somewhere that you may be able to use some of the money that you have in your TSP to start a business. Is that true? Do you know anything about that, and if so, how would that work?
I must confess I don't know, so I don't want to give you bad information on that. I'm not an expert on how to use some of your retirement money and your protected savings that come through military service. I just don't know that, to be truthful. I wish I could tell you more, Mel, but I just don't. Tanya, did you have your hand up a moment ago? I thought I saw it up.
Hi, this is Mel. I have my hand up. I have a question to ask you. Now, I have a 2-year window before I retire from the government system, and I already raised enough collateral on my own to open. I'm going to open an international coffee shop, and I'm going to focus on coffee from Ethiopia, which is the birthplace of coffee. I spent a year there with special operations, and I'm looking at 3 key locations: Santa Fe, New Mexico, north of Seattle, and Charleston. My question is this: since I used to have a consultant firm years ago, and I closed it down, and now this is what I want to do. So money is not the main issue for me because I already saw the cost to open up the coffee shop. I already know my product. I'm trying to get the demographic of which area will be the most prone to it because it's going to be more high end. My question is to you: when if I do need money for a 6-month backup plan, just to make sure I have money for salaries, products, and everything, construction, buy my product is not going to be the issue. So should I go to the bank or to a private investor saying, I have the money to start the business. I'm starting the business based on my business plans, my business model, my geographical location. Everything is good to go. If I have a certain amount, let's say $500,000, should I only go and borrow what I need to sustain myself that first 6 months and not get carried away and take out more than what I need?
I want to talk to you about something called a revolver or revolving line of credit. Are you familiar with those, Mel?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So we've all had or have credit cards, right? And the way the credit card works is that you pull money on the credit card and you pay it back over time. And then you can pull money back out again. And it revolves back and forth. It's called the revolving line of credit. Well, businesses can do the same. So Mel, what I would want to see you do in that circumstance is go to a bank and get a revolving line of credit set up for 50,000, 100,000, whatever you want to call it, and use that as your emergency fund. You incur no cost for interest until such time as you pull money down and borrow money on it. Your bank will act just like a credit card company and will advance that money when you want it. And then you'll repay it to the bank as you can based on the seasonality of your business. But the nice part about it is while you might have some initial upfront setup costs, it's not going to be much. It's going to be negligible. But you now have that cash, that piggy bank waiting for you if you ever need it, on a chance that circumstances will arise. And if you don't need it, you're not paying anything for it. That makes some sense?
Yes, that makes sense. But should I also try to if I do make money, get a cash value life insurance too? So if I do need to borrow, I borrow against my life cash, my optional life insurance. Would that also be a good option?
I would say no. I would rather see you have a separate line of credit with the bank that you don't really need, that you can tip into as you need it. Because when you pay that back, you'll still have your life insurance set up with all the cash value. You pull the cash value out, statistically, very few people pay it back. You pull it out, it's likely going to stay out. And you're going to also have tax implication when you pull it out. Now you can borrow against it, but a lot of times if you don't pay it back within, I think it's 36 months, it's treated as income and you have to pay taxes on it. So it gets kind of sticky depending on what your accountant tells you. But what I don't like about it is that you're now reducing the amount of death benefit should something bad happen to you. And perhaps your heirs might prefer that you go to the bank. And I would tell you that the bank is an easier way I guess the bank is a sexier way to solve your problem than to try and pull down money out of your life insurance.
All right. So yeah, I think I'm gonna revolving line of credit will be my best choice.
Yeah, I think so. And remember now, you're not paying for it until such time as you use it. And so truly a line of credit. But it sounded
Okay.
like in your business that you might not need it. While we're talking, I want you to I want you to write down a name of a company, because I bet you they'll talk to you about how they've built their business. I want you to write down Rakuten. All right. For those of you who may be familiar, that's the name of a army division, the Rakutans. And this is a group of veterans who came through the IVMF a number of years back, who have created a business just like the one you anticipate doing, except theirs was in tea. And they're creating international teas. They sell international teas from around the world based on countries that had once had war that now no longer are at odds, and they are now opening their markets back up. And they've got some exotic teas, and I'm a customer of theirs. And they're populated by half a dozen or a dozen veterans who have built this business, and they're now doing quite well. And I'm willing to bet you, because of the brotherhood, that they'd be happy to tell you how they did it. So you might want to check out Rakuten. It's Rakkasan, I think. It's a funky word, but if you don't, I can always get a link for you if you want off the web, and I can try and get it to Anjanetta. She can spin it back out to you.
I
But
just
I'll-
put it in the chat, Ken.
Okay.
Hi, this is Mel. Just to let you guys know, the Rakuten is from the 101st. I wasn't 101st. They're the five of the I can't remember the name, but they fought in the Pacific War during World War II, and the Japanese were so impressed with them that they started calling them the Rakutans. It is actually called Rakutans, but yeah, it's the same concept.
Yep. So they have built it's the Rakuten Tea Company, and I'm a customer of theirs, and they've done a great job. And I'm sure that they would be happy to tell you how they did it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool. Franklin, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Like I said, I'm in my fledgling stages of starting my business. I don't have any employees or anything. It's just myself and my partner. But if we were to decide to have employees, at the beginning stages of your business, where do you get that money from? Is it from investors? Because you said that not to put the investors' money in your pocket, right? And the investors' money is for the business. So how would you pay your employees at the very beginning of your business if you were like to have an opening in a store?
I would think of your employees as your business. It's just not your personal pocket. So if you have employees to pay and you needed to pay them from that pile of cash, that would make some sense. So that's not what we're saying. What I'm saying is the investors don't want me to personally profit off of their money until the business generates cash. But employees are legitimate business expense. But I would tell you, Franklin, you guys have heard the term bootstrapping. There's very few businesses that can legitimately start up with the overhead of employees. That's something well down the road. Only after the business that can support that kind of expense. So that's something that you're going to need to think about with your partner as to when you exactly want to pull that trigger and bring on that first employee. But that certainly isn't in that early stage when you're trying to get launched. And when you're trying to get launched, it's you and your partner, and you guys are chief cook and bottle washer.
Thank you.
Yep. Let me also talk to you guys. Oh, go ahead, Delphine.
Yes, thank you, sir. Right now I'm doing like farming. I'm doing farming, and I'm also in the business of food, cooked food, baked items. So I just want to know, how does finances play, like getting a partner to start with, and what role does finances play when you're doing something like raising sheep? I'm raising sheep right now. I have about 4 sheep in the backyard. I have over 100 chickens. And I do gardening. It's about 4,000 square feet. I grow a variety of food, vegetables back there. And I also go to the farmer's market with big goods and a few cooked items. So at this point, my aim is to get a restaurant. And I want to know, at what point do I go to obtain finances for something like that? Right now, I only sell at events where they need vendors, and also at a food market.
Okay. So Did I also hear you say something about a patent, or did I mishear you?
Was that?
You say something about a patent?
A partner, to get a partner.
Yes.
Okay. So, first off, given the nature of what you're doing,
Mhm.
it would probably be pretty hard to find a bank that will loan money. I need to explain that banks very rarely advance money to restaurants and food companies. The reason behind it is that they have terrible losses in that industry. Think about how fickle the consumer appetites are for food. One year it's stay away from gluten. The next year it's stay away from carbs. The next year it's go vegan. And unless you're on the edge of that and always constantly changing with those trends, find that your business opens up one year and it's dead 3 years later, and the bank's licking their wounds because they loaned money. So the bank is going to be very hesitant to lend money to a business like yours, not because you're a bad person, but because of the nature of what you do. So what you would likely find is that you're going to need to continue to go to farmers markets. You're going to continue to kind of sell that way. And one of the beauties of that is it's all cash up front. So it's not like you're waiting to get paid. People are paying you cash money at the store, at the market, and you're going to put that away, and you're going to save that as best you can. At some point, when you're ready to start a business, you're going to have a decent amount of cash that you've saved up, and you're going to then find a partner, an equity partner, that will pay you money and to be your partner going forward. It might be someone who's a cook, it might be someone who's just an investor, but typically the way that works in the restaurant industry is people are going to become your partner and put cash in that way. It's very rare to find a restaurant with a loan unless it's a really long-standing established restaurant with a big brand name. Okay.
Okay.
Let me shift gears if I can. I want to tell you about additional benefits and opportunities for you guys to kind of circle yourselves around this issue of financing. I mentioned the Small Business Administration before. I mentioned how they guarantee small loans. What I haven't explained is the other things that they do as well to support all of us in the entrepreneurial pursuit. There's something called the Small Business Development Center. It goes by the acronym SBDC. You guys know acronyms, you're in the military. All right. So the SBDCs are populated all around the country. There's literally hundreds of them. And oftentimes they're attached to universities and community colleges throughout the countryside. These organizations are funded by the Small Business Administration, and their sole purpose is to help people like us. Help people like us find investors in the community, to get introduced to bankers who might lend us money. They'll provide workshops on how to put together business plans and to get our products into markets, to give us advice. Their purpose is to make life better for us. You're going to find them on the internet. Google up SBDCs, Google them up, SBDCs in Syracuse, New York, or whatever town you're in, and you're going to find out where they're located, and you're going to want to call them and explain what's going on. And trust me, you're not the first person to call them this week with where you are as a business. Okay, they're constantly dealing with those of us that are small, getting started. That's a benefit of the SBA. Another benefit of the SBA is something called the SCORE program. Again, that's an acronym, SCORE. That stands for the Service Corps of Retired Executives. So what happens with the SCORE program? These are individuals, they're business people who are typically retired or in semi-retirement who want to give back to the community. They want to help us. They want to be our mentor. They want to provide counsel to us, put us under their wing, show us the way, help us through conversations like these to help you refine your thinking and to get better able to go to market. You will be assigned an executive in the SCORE program to work with you exclusively and be your big buddy, so to speak. So I want you to know about that availability too. That's a big help to us as we try and get our businesses established. Hold on a moment, I gotta go get my light again. I got more though. I very rarely run Zoom calls at night from my office. So this is not a normal problem for me, but it is for tonight. The other thing I want to talk to you about is something called CDFIs, which stands for Community Development Financial Institution, CDFI. I'm going to give you a website, which is cdfifund.org. Okay. Let me explain what a CDFI is. Or no, I take that back. It's cdifund.gov. Pardon me. Banks are, by regulation, required to put money into their given communities. Okay. They're required to contribute capital to their communities to help the general welfare and benefit of their communities. That can be in the form of any number of different things like workshops. It can be in the form of lending programs. It can be in the form of grants. It can be in the form of assisting not-for-profits in the community, or any number of those all at once. One of the options too is for larger banks to fund a CDFI in their community. And the role of this community development financial institution is to lend money when the bank won't. Think about this for a minute. The bank is lending money, funding another bank to do transactions that the big bank won't do. And they're required by government regulation to do this. The CDFIs are spread around the country as well. They're typically run by former bankers. They are going to look at your company's creditworthiness, but they're going to make yes decisions in a lot of places when the banks will say no. Maybe you're too young or too new for the bank. Maybe your personal credit has blemishes. Maybe the bank doesn't want to work with you because you had a loss last year. Will the CDFI? Yeah, probably. Okay. So do know that they exist. Now, they're not going to lend big bucks to you, nor are they going to be people who are going to grow with you and become a $5 million lender with you someday. But if you're looking for $50,000 or $100,000, your regional CDFI might be a great door to knock on. So do know that they exist. So from a support standpoint, we've got the SBA guaranteeing bank loan, funding the small business development centers, funding the SCORE program, and all of which we can benefit from. And then the government, not the SBA, but another part of the government, that being the FDIC, they require the funding of these CDFIs in regions around the country. Now, if you're in a particularly rural area, it might be hard to find a CDFI that covers your area. If you're in an urban region, it's quite likely that there's going to be one nearby. What else can I help you with? I got a question. Oh, go ahead, Patricia.
Hi, so I'm at the very, very beginning of all of this. I have been developing my idea from something that I thought about years ago into a future business, and it's a services business, and you haven't really talked about if you're providing services. I'm an attorney. I want to use temporary attorneys who are retirees who don't need benefits because they got benefits already, and have them use their specialty to make a profit in one side of the law firm. Take a percentage of what what we make from our clients and put it into a nonprofit law firm that that networks with other nonprofits to get worthy clients who need assistance with legal services. So constantly taking the money and moving a portion of it around. So just anything, thoughts based on what, and some of the businesses, some of the attorneys would even do defense contracts. I've got people who call me up and say, do you know anybody, a lawyer who can work on this contract? Or I know people who constantly need my assistance with whatever legal issue. So I've got the individuals to pull from, but I don't even know, what to start with other than all these ideas about the SBA and the CDFI. Those are great, but other things I should be thinking about.
Well, first off, I love the idea. I think it's really innovative. I really do. I think that's really cool. Let me ask quickly, Patricia, for the core side of business, the side of business you're going to generate capital with, are you working with individuals or is this corporate law?
it would be individual attorneys who do anywhere from documents to litigation to negotiation. So individuals, when I thought of it, I was a young mother who didn't want to be in the field, in the Army for full time, but I knew I would have taken a case here or there because I did want to make some money. Or somebody who's retiring who still wants to take a case here or there. And so the cases would be, based on marketing, having someone who's constantly looking for advertising for clients, then publicizing that. And if you're in Kentucky and we've got a client, then do you want to take this case? And you get, again, a percentage of the money that we make from that client. It wouldn't be a reduced fee on the for-profit side. I don't know what the going rate is other than lawyers make good money. So
on the for-profit side, I guess my question is, are you offering the legal services to individuals or to corporate?
To both, to individuals, to corporate, to defense contracts. Again, I have someone who constantly writes defense contracts and wins the bid and then needs attorneys to do it. They only for a short period of time, a year, 2 year, or individual action. So everybody, anybody.
So from a structural standpoint, the nice part about it is, as you know, corporate bills get paid typically a whole lot quicker than consumer bills. So if you're charging a few $1,000s to some consumer to represent them in some litigation, getting their money is oftentimes quite arduous. And from a corporate standpoint, the corporate parties, they'll pay their bill. The good news here from a structural standpoint for you is that if you structure this right, you don't have a whole lot of expenses until you get revenue, and then you're sharing it with the lawyer partner. So you've got your lawyers coming in, you're not advancing them wages based on the hours they work. You're going to basically pay, when you get paid, they get paid. And that's a beautiful thing, which dramatically reduces the amount of money you need to raise up front. So really your first order of business is to try and figure out what do I need and how am I going to spend it? I'm guessing it's primarily money up front for marketing purposes. And maybe establishment of your business. Those can be comparatively modest amounts. The question is going to be what else might you need money for? Because I'm willing to bet you might also say to your legal partners, why don't we all pitch in $25,000? We're all going to be partners in this thing, and we're going to share based. The expression, what you kill, you eat. We're gonna be a partnership. Everybody's gonna kick in $25,000. It's gonna be 10 of us. We're gonna have $250,000 with which to market ourselves. We're gonna work remotely or virtually. We don't need to have an office. And what you kill, you eat. So when the money comes in the door, you're gonna get 50% of it or whatever the money is, or 60%, and the rest stays with the house. And now let me tell you what we're gonna do with the money that stays with the house. I don't hear a whole lot in there about needing upfront cash. Am I missing something?
Again, I didn't think so, but I have not thought this through much at all, other than the idea, not even how to execute is as I'm going through these classes.
Yeah, so to me, the beauty of it is that you can structure your business in such a way that you really don't need much in the way of upfront capital. And the upfront capital that you need, you can get from your fellow attorneys and make everybody partners in this business. Okay.
Thank you.
Hopefully that helps. And I didn't mean to leave out service businesses by any means, shape, or form. They're certainly valuable in our community as well. Any other questions I can help you with?
Ken, you talked about using credit cards. Can you tell me at what juncture would you decide to use a credit card? I guess assuming if you don't have friends or family that can contribute, would you then go to credit cards?
Yeah, so, a credit card is going to cost you, let's say, on the high end these days, it's going to cost you 20%. Okay. Hopefully you can get one cheaper than that, but let's call it 20%. If you're envisioning a business that can't generate a 20% return on your cash, then you're not designed to profit business. Your businesses should be returning 200 and 300% on your cash in a given year. So the question isn't so much, should I use a credit card? The answer is yes, because it's unsecured money that's not equity money. It's what we say, it's not dilutive. You're not diluting your ownership, and there's no collateral. Those are two beautiful things. And granted that you have to pay a decent amount of interest while you're using that money. When you pay it back, you have no interest costs. So it's kind of like a revolver, like we talked about earlier. Now, your other part of your question was, when do I tap that till, right? And I would tell you, I wouldn't want you to tap it until you're about ready to launch. If you're just kind of thinking through your business and coming up with a product, in some regards, as Franklin was, I wouldn't want to see Franklin do that right away while he's coming up with his product design. I would want to see you, however, consider that when you're about ready to launch. And at that point, I say that because the chances of you being able to repay it pretty promptly are pretty good, because you're going to start to generate income after you launch. I just don't want to get you in a position where you're using it 6 months too early and having to, service all that debt while cash is tight.
Okay, thank you.
Don't be afraid of those interest rates. At the end of the day, they're a mere fraction of what you're going to do with that cash.
Understood.
The other point I'd share with you guys, I don't know how we're doing on time here, Antonetta, but I want to give you guys some measure of assurance here. It's been my personal experience that if you've got a good idea, there's going to be money out there for you. Okay. The reality is, yeah, we're going into recession, or if you define it differently, we already are in a recession, and interest rates are going to go up bad next week. All right, and the bottom of the stock market is falling out this week. You know what that means? There's a whole lot of people that used to be in the stock market who are sitting on cash instead. All right, there's never a bad time to raise money for your company if you've got a good idea. And if you've got a good idea, people will find their way to you, and you'll be able to make a connection. Let me also ask you guys, if I were to say to you, or if I were to ask you, where are you going to go to find an equity investor? Where are you going to find that angel? Aside from getting on TV and going on Shark Tank, where are you going to go to find that investor partner? Any ideas? Because it's not like you can dial up 1-800 angel investors. I would tell you to network with your lawyer, your accountant, your banker, and your regional chamber of commerce. Virtually every chamber of commerce of any substance in the countryside has a list. They don't publish it, it's not on their website. But if you were to ask them, who in the community has raised their hand to say, I'd like to be an angel investor at some point, they've got a list. And they're going to share with you the names and phone numbers and email contacts of 8 or 10 people that are in that community who raised their hand at one time or another and said, refer me to somebody who needs an angel investor. I'd like to see some opportunity. That like I said, virtually all chambers of commerce of any substance keep that list. That's the one place to go. The other is by working with your professional team, your banker, your accountant, your insurance person, your lawyer. They have connections in the community. If they don't, you've chosen the wrong professional. But they're going to know people in the community who they can also introduce you to and open doors for you. I'm looking at Patricia when I say that. Patricia, if I came to you and said, do you know of anybody to refer? Do you have any ideas? You need to find some, because I might call you up someday and ask you that.
Yes.
Just kidding with you. How are we doing on time, Anjanette? I've been babbling quite a while here. I don't want to.
No, I had a buffer for you until 8:30, 7:30 Central. So if they have no more questions, we can conclude. But if not, we still have a few minutes left. Any other questions? He's got a wealth of knowledge, pun intended.
Well, what I want to do is conclude by congratulating you guys on potentially pursuing this. I've found entrepreneurship to be a wonderful ambition. It's exciting at times, it's scary at times. It's a great way to live one's life. And I would also want to say to all of you, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you've done in your career on our behalf. Thank you for all that you continue to do. And just know that there's a lot of us out here who are exceptionally grateful. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll probably turn it over to Anjanetta then if there's no other questions.
Well, thank you so very much, Ken. Now you see why I said what I said. He's really great, and what he knows, he shares freely. So thank you so much for that. I hope that you all were taking notes. I took all of the links that he mentioned and I put them in Blackboard as well, but I put them here. And then with the, I think he said Bob Barnes, I'll put the link to that as well in there, but I hadn't done it just yet for him. I just put the ones for the Small Business Association. But yes, he is staff and an instructor, a professor with SU and Whitman School of Management, which is highly competitive to get into if you want entry. So you guys got this at no cost other than the commitment of the hour and a half that you were on the line. So thank you so much, Ken. I really, really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Happy to help.
Yes. So I'm going to stop the recording. So if there's no other questions, and